Yo, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Jesse, and this is How to Drum and Bass, where it is my job to teach you awesome things about drum and bass. And today I want to both teach you something, but also correct something from an earlier video. Because a while back, I did a video on how to create rave stab hits like Dimension, like his song DJ Turn It Up. And although we got pretty close with a free plugin called Rave Generator, which is still really cool, we were definitely missing something. And one of you in the comments suggested that probably instead of using Rave Generator, it was more likely an orchestra hit. And as soon as I read it, I knew that that person was completely right. Although I doubted that it was going to be just an orchestra hit. So I went ahead and figured out how to make a real orchestra hit from scratch and share it with you guys. And then later in the video, we're going to add it to what we already had with the rave stabs to create a sound that is, I would say, 95% similar to what Dimension uses in DJ Turn It Up. But more than that, this is just a very interesting sound to be able to use in your songs because it's very powerful, it's very epic, and it can add a lot of energy to your track. So if you don't know what an orchestra hit is, you've definitely heard it before. It sounds like this. And you've heard it before in many songs. It's used a lot in hip hop. It obviously gets done in movies. And it's called an orchestra hit because it's one staccato, or if I'm not saying that correct, a short hit from many different instruments in an orchestra. And the other thing is that we don't need a whole orchestra, fortunately, to recreate it. We can do it with a free plugin from Spitfire. So without further ado, let's see how we can recreate that in Serum, Ableton, and with this free plugin. As always, if you just want the free preset, you can find it in the link below. And actually what I've done is I've consolidated everything that we're gonna do, all the instruments, into one Ableton Live device for your simplicity. So go and download it to make your life easier. Let's dive in. All right, so we are in Ableton, and what you can see here is we have a lot of different instruments here. So you can read by the descriptions here, and they're all hitting one note of the same length, and then we have a few other things here. And the end result sounds like this. Now, I was playing some different notes there, and you might have heard that they don't all sound exactly the same. They seem to have slightly different timbres. That's something we're gonna fix later in this video, so keep watching. All right, so let's see what we've got. Let's just quickly dive into the free plugin, which is called the BBC Symphony Orchestra. And this is, once again, you can download this from Spitfire Audio, and it's a sample library of pretty much every standard piece in the orchestra. So you've got violins, like main violins and backing violins. You've got all these woodwinds, which are like flutes and clarinets and the piccolo and, well, whatever an oboe is. I haven't heard of it before, but it's also some type of flute. We have basses, actually, like cello basses. We have other cellos, celli, whatever it's called. We have tuba, like some brass instrument, trombones, trumpets. And then we have some more stuff like the harp and some types of percussion. And of course, we have the piano. And actually, pretty much like 80% of this we're going to use to create this orchestral hit. Because once again, the orchestral hit is lots of instruments hitting at the same time on the same short note, which is in this plugin called spiccato. So let's solo these violins really quickly. And let's also say that what we want to do for every instrument, we want to determine which chords to play. And the easiest way to begin with each different instrument is to get one of these chord functionalities within Ableton and get 1 octave up, 2 octaves up, 3 octaves up, and 1 octave down, and sort of see where that gets you when you play the notes. And currently we're playing the C3 note. And then you go into the BBC Orchestra, you select, well, in this case, we want to start with the violins, so we're going to get the main violins, and we want to put it on this spiccato note. And the reason for this, actually, is because the long one sounds like this, but that's not powerful enough, whereas the spiccato sounds like this. So that's exactly this, like a short, powerful, stabby sort of note. That's what we want for pretty much every instrument here. So yeah, we go and select all of those. And so it's important that you put the chords in correctly, because if you don't, it's just this. See, that is much fuller. And you can add some, you could even add a major chord or a minor chord, that's all up to you. But for the purposes of now, I'm only choosing to do octaves because we want to translate it later to several notes, as we're going to dive into DJ Turn It Up, which is dun, 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 dun. And when you have major chords or minor chords, it's sometimes harder to pitch it up and downwards in certain notes. We've got the violin now, which sounds like this. Essentially what we want to start doing is adding pretty much almost all the other instruments in very much the same fashion, although we want to maybe make some changes to which chords get played. So we got the violins, we're going to get the violas, which is exactly the same. We're using the same octaves, but in this case we are choosing to do the violas right here. And again on that spiccato note, right? Sounds like this. And so what you might notice is that this and this does sound quite similar. And that's not actually bad because we're trying to layer so many things because it'll really increase the richness of the sound by adding all these instruments that sound the same but slightly different. It's just going to make it a lot more full and epic. So yeah, we'll take the violas, we'll do exactly the same thing with the cellos, although you might want to see around which octaves you want, because for example now with just 2 octaves extra it sounds like this, but if you were to add sort of that 36th on there, it doesn't actually do that much. You could go one lower, add some more bass, for example. This is sort of up to your taste. So this is where you can start blending also how many highs and how many lows you want. For now, we'll keep it with just 2 octaves. So we got the cellos. Then we're going to add the bass as well, which sounds like this. So that's a much darker timbre. Note that I've pitched the notes down here a little bit because the bass can also sound like this. Because if you don't, then if we're playing the same note, I just copied this MIDI file here, right? Then it doesn't work because, well, you can see here that the bass only plays in these lower notes, right? So got to pitch them down a little bit and also use 2 octaves. So we got the bass, and then we start on the woodwinds, right? We get the flute. We just get four octaves in total. So the bass one and these upper ones, flute sounds like this. So that's going to add some of that airiness to it. We get the piccolo, which is another type of flute. Going to add something like that. Now we're going to do much the same thing with the oboes, the clarinets, the bassoons, the trumpets, the trombones, and the timpani. I want to make a special mention about the timpani because the timpani is actually one of the percussion instruments. So if you go into the BBC plugin, you can see here that there's percussion and tuned percussion. And when you go to percussion, you'll see 2 options here. So the way that the notes are played for the other instruments, like long spiccato or these other 2, but here in percussion, it's actually different instruments. So we have timpani hits and untuned percussion, and you got to choose the timpani hits. And these are going to add a really nice dark and sort of rumbly, bassy timbre to it because the timpani hits are essentially, well, they sound like this. That's that cinematic, epic sort of, almost the gong drums or whatever you want to call them. And they are really actually a very big part of making the sound full because a lot of these instruments do not occupy much of the lower frequencies. Even the bass is sort of like mid-bassy. This is going to give you some more sub-bassy stuff. All right, and then last but not least, you could choose also to add a crash to give it some more pizzazz. That's all up to you. And you could also add a tom if you wanted to. For this particular case, I chose not to because for the purposes of using this for DJ Turn It Up, by Dimension, we don't hear that there, but these are also options to make your orchestra hit sound a little bit more full and interesting. And so now these are all individual channels, right? But this is, of course, very messy in your Ableton project. So what you can do is actually you can consolidate those all in one channel. Just make a instrument rack and just add all of them here just like that. And then, we can solo this and I'll just play all those instruments on the same note. Right? Perfect. The only thing that we want to do now is because a real orchestra hit, it's a large number of players spread out over the stage. So all the sounds are going to come from a slightly different direction. And both in an effort to make this sound more real, but also in an effort to sort of get some more surround sound and some more stereo imaging going, we want to pan some of these a little bit left and right to create that illusion of wideness. And so what we're going to do is we're going to leave the bass elements, so the lower frequencies, we're going to leave those centered so that they form a nice basis for the sound. They can be the mono, but these higher instruments, we're going to pan them just randomly left and right. So you can do that here. This C means center, but we can take the violins, we can put them a little bit left, put these a little bit right, put the flutes a lot left. Let's say the bass we keep in touch, the piccolo we put, just a little bit right, left to right, and that will make it sound like this. Now, nice. All right, so let's save this. We can save this instrument rack for usage later, or you can just download it in the link below. You can also save it by just pressing this save button here, and then it'll appear here in your user library. So let's do that for now, and let's head into those rave stabs from DJ Turn It Up. All right, so let's listen to what we had before using Rave Generator. And by the way, you can watch that video somewhere here if you haven't seen it before. What we created before with Rave Generator in the previous video was this. All right, so like I said, that already sounds probably about 70 to 80% there, but we want to add this orchestra hit and make it sound a little bit more real, because all of the stuff from Rave Generator is just samples, and we did a lot of manipulation in there to sort of get the proper highs out there. So we can add this orchestra thing that we just made here, where we have all the instruments in one go. And what we can do is we can either play the notes, which will sound like this. But you hear there that on the highest note, it does something weird, and that's because we're overreaching the notes that are available in the BBC plugin. So what we can do is we can make an audio channel and put the input here on this channel here. So we put 13 orchestra as the input, and we select this record button, and then we're going to record one note of audio. We're going to record that middle note here, that F. So we're just going to deactivate this using the 0 key, and then we're going to record. All right, then we're gonna trim this a little bit. And what we're gonna do then is we're gonna make a new MIDI channel. We're gonna drag this audio sample that we just made into here so that it gets put in a simpler. And then we're just gonna add another couple of octaves just to make sure we fill out everything of that frequency spectrum. And that's gonna sound like, and if we then take this, for example, this, and if we then take the same MIDI notes that we were using before, we can do this. It's gonna sound like this. And we can up the volume a little bit to 0 because samples always come in pretty low volume, right? And maybe we can add one octave lower even. We're going to put this warp at complex pro as well so that it warps the sample correctly and it doesn't sound all kind of weird. Now we see that it hits that higher note perfectly. So we're going to combine this with all the other rave steps that we had, which by themselves sound like this. That one, this one. So that's the saw layer. That's the little sort of reverby thingy behind it. And we're going to combine all of them to sound like this. And if we want to have a slightly higher tonality, we can maybe take out this saw-y layer, this one. Let's take that out, see how it sounds. And as we can see, if we play the original song, we can see that we got really, really close. All right, so that is the orchestral hit, and obviously beyond this use, it can be used for many more other creative options. And I'm curious to hear what you might be using this for. Are you going to include this in a new track? Are you going to freestyle on it? Are you going to add something to it? Let me know, because I'm super curious about what you guys are making. Anyway, that was the video for today. I hope that this was cool for you and that you learned something. If you did learn something, please put it down below, share it with others, because everybody who's watching this video is looking to make this awesome genre and to learn more about it. So share the love, and hopefully I will see you in the next video.